this follows meeting.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to change our presentation. We're going to have Mr. Davis and staff. So we're excited to meet you all.
We have some wonderful new additions to our Lyme Central School family. I'll call your name up and you would come forward. First of all, we have Tess Winkler. She is our kindergarten teacher. She did her student teaching last year with us, and she taught third grade, and now she's an official part of our family. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Glad to be a part. Going that way? Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Our new addition to our Lyme Central School family is Elizabeth Meadow. She is working with Mrs. Sullivan in the pre-K as a teacher's assistant. She is a North Country native, originating from Cape Vincent, but now she lives here in the village of Shamokin.
Nice to meet everyone.
We had two additions to our ELA. Our ELA one is Leah Martinoff. Leah and her husband live near Fort Drum. He's enlisted in the Army there. She's originally from Saugerties, so if you remember, Miss Seymour is from Saugerties too. She is teaching 7th, 8th, and 10th grade.
Doing a fantastic job. Yeah. Welcome.
We are fortunate to have our own speech therapist right now, our speech teacher, Selena Ostrander. She is a Thousand Islands grad, and we're shared between the Thousand Islands District and Lyme, but we're fortunate to have her now. She was at BOCE, she's now part of our family.
I'm so thankful to be here full time. It's wonderful. She's doing you well.
Fabulous job.
Thank you.
Another teacher assistant that works in the kindergarten is Sarah Pond. She hails from not one of our points, but from Pillar Point. And we are so glad to have Sarah with us. You get her point. Let's see. Another teacher in our ELA is Paige Yowzy. Paige hails from Lowville originally. She's a Lowville grad, also a Utica College grad. So she did her education there and worked in some other systems and has come with us, and recently has changed her name. So when we interviewed her, she had a different last name. She was married over the summer. Welcome, Paige.
We have a very dynamic team in the ELA. We are very excited to have them.
We have two teachers that can't be here right now, and they're going to come to our November meeting. It's Colleen Patnow, who teaches 6th grade. She is also our modified girls coach, and Carly Sherman, who's our phys ed teacher. So they're going to join us next week, so you get to know their faces. So welcome, everyone. And the nice thing about this meeting is
You don't have to.
Thank
you. Thank you. Well, all right. Our first presentation will be our audit report.
Can I get a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. I'm gonna assume you can see the PowerPoint. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Crow. I'm an audit manager with Bowers and Company CPAs. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here today. Thank you very much for allowing Bowers to continue to service Lyme School District. I also want to send a thank you to Ariana Morrison for all her help during the audit this year. Everything went very smoothly, even though it was her first go around by herself with the audit. Everything went very smooth. So thank you very much for her help. For today's presentation, I'll go through a quick PowerPoint. I'll go through this kind of quickly because I don't want to hold you guys here all night. There's a lot of information in the financial statements, but this PowerPoint should capture the significant items for everyone to see. So a brief outline of what we'll cover today. We'll go through the required communications, highlights of the financial statements. We'll go through some graphs. We'll compare Lyme this year compared to prior years, as well as compare the district to some of our clients as well. And then we'll leave off with some management recommendations. So the audit of communication, this is what we're required to communicate to the board. First of all, there's no unusual accounting policies at the district. And this year we did adopt all new GASB standards. The one GASB standard this year is GASB 84 for fiduciary activities. And essentially what this GASB standard did is change the definition for fiduciary activities and required some of the activities that were traditionally fiduciary to be moved to the governmental funds. And those activities would be the scholarship funds, as well as the extra classroom funds. And you'll see those show up as additional funds this year within the governmental funds in the financial statements. Also new this year is the custodial funds. You'll see that in the fiduciary financial statements. And essentially that replaces the agency fund. And you'll see some new activity there for the library taxes collected, essentially taxes collected for other governments. Some new standards coming up, GASB 87 for leases. This will be effective for next year. However, this will not have some significant accounting estimates. These are estimates that are relatively sensitive in nature that management controls. These include depreciation expense, as well as actuarial assumptions. These are basically relying on the census data that the district provides to the actuaries to calculate some of these significant amounts on the balance sheet. As far as the audit adjustments go, all the significant audit adjustments are attached to the communications report that has been provided to the board. A lot of adjustments there you'll see, but most of these adjustments are required every year for us to prepare the financial statements. There was relatively few adjustments that we had to do as part of the audit. In addition to that, we also had to do a few entries to implement GASB 84 for the required changes to the fiduciary activities. There were no difficulties encountered during the audit, no disagreements with management, etc. Other matters that are communicated in the report just explain our procedures. We do limited procedures on the MD&A and the required supplementary information. Those are not part of our actual audit procedures. At the beginning of the financial statements, you'll see our independent auditor's report. And what this states is that the financial statements are the responsibility of management, and that our responsibility as the auditors is to express an opinion on the financials based on our audit. And for this year, that's a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion. Some other matters that are discussed, reporting requirements on the MD&A, required supplementary information, as well as our report on internal control over compliance and other matters. It's important to note that we do not audit internal control. However, as part of our auditing procedures, we do review controls, and anything that we notice, we will report to the board. So I'll briefly go through these financial statements. Just an overview of the year, slight decrease in students from 351 to 332 students for 2020-2021. In the governmental funds, you'll notice an increase of approximately $789,000 in the fund balance. Federal aid for the year is $650,000. This is important to note because the district is not subject to a single audit for this year. So we did not have to do a single audit. Next year, it's likely that the district could be over the 750,000 and we may have to do a single audit. Statement of net position for the government wide. You'll see here year over year, slight increase in total assets. But the biggest changes is on this, if you look at the bottom, you see a total net position of 10.5 million. That's a deficit for the district, which is mainly due to the long-term liabilities, OPEB liability, or the liability for other post-employment benefits. We did see an increase in that this year, which resulted in an additional expense of about $1 million. So that's going to be your biggest change year over year, that decrease the deficit, even though the funds had a positive fund balance. Statement of activities, year over year, revenues are relatively consistent, but you'll see state sources decrease approximately 180,000. However, this was supplemented by the CARES Act monies that was received this year. And you'll see federal sources increase approximately 114,000 for those CARES Act monies. Expenses year over year, you see an increase in expense on the government wide for 312,000. Again, that's mainly due to the increase in the OPEB liability and not directly related to the change in expenses for the general fund. There are some restatements this year. These restatements are related to the implementation of GASB 84 and basically required us to record the assets for the extra classroom activities, as well as the scholarships and awards as governmental funds on the balance sheet. So you'll see an addition to those at the beginning of the year. Governmental balance sheet, you'll see here just the major governmental funds, all the non-major governmental funds, including special aid, school food service, extra classroom scholarships will be included in the supplementary information. So the two major funds here are general fund and debt service fund. General fund having approximately $5 million in cash this year, of which restricted and reserves is about half of that, about $2.5 million. Statement of revenues and expenditures. Just want to point out the general fund year over year had an increase of revenues approximately $89,000. The expenditures in the general fund actually decreased approximately $230,000. You'll see some significant activity here for debt service fund this year and the other financing sources. This is related to the bond refunding during the year. The district refunded approximately $1.8 million in bonds, which actually resulted in approximately $66,000 of savings over the term of the bonds. Not a lot of activity in the capital assets this year. 180,000 in additions to furniture, equipment, and building improvements, with an overall decrease because of depreciation. Long-term liabilities, you'll see here some additions and significant reductions just basically due to the bond refunding. As I mentioned, $1.8 million in bonds received to pay off $1.7 million of 2011 bonds. You also see here a significant increase in the other post-employment benefits liability, increase about $3.4 million based on the actuarial report this year. General fund budget to actual, kind of how I like to read the schedule is to start on the left-hand side. You'll see a $614,000 net change in fund balance expected. So the district anticipated on using $600,000 of fund balance to fund the general fund this year, the budget. The actual results in the third column, they actually had a pickup of $720,000 in the general fund this year. And why did that happen? If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see revenues came in under budget, approximately $200,000. However, expenditures were also under budget, about $960,000. And on top of that, there was $600,000 of encumbrances, which essentially were committed funds that were just not spent during the year. Here you'll see the section, real property tax law calculation. The district has 16.2% fund balance. As we know, the district is allowed to have 4% of the next year's budget in fund balance, or approximately $350,000 of fund balance. Currently, with the calculation, the district's at $1.4 million, which is approximately $1 million over the limit. You'll see a little bit later when we compare Lyme to some of our other school districts. This is the common occurrence throughout all of our school districts. The average industry among our 20 school districts, the average percentage is about 9%. So majority of our school districts are seeing this excess fund balance right now, and are required to make the same decisions that Lyme is. Extra classroom activity funds. We also audit the statement of cash receipts and disbursements. We had an unmodified opinion in the extra classroom activities, or a clean opinion. Moving on to our graphs. As I mentioned, we have about 20 school districts that we audit in the North Country, and these range from 300 students up to about 1,300 students in each district. First graph, general and program revenues. This shows the program revenues as a percentage of total for the district. Just want to note here that you'll see the property taxes. This district relies a lot more on property taxes as opposed to state aid than some of our other districts. Program expenses year over year and compared to our industry or the other school districts, very consistent throughout the categories of general support, instruction, education. General fund balance, you'll see since 2018, the fund balance has been increasing, going from about 7% to the current 16.2%. As I mentioned, throughout all of our school districts right now, the average fund balance is 9.2%, which is over that 4% required limit. This graph shows essentially how accurate the budget was, revenues as a percentage of the final budget, and expenditures as a percentage of the final budget. You'll see expenditures came in under budget of about 17% compared to our other school districts, which is approximately 10% under budget. Revenue is pretty consistent year over year, and pretty close to the budgeted dollar amounts. The district's net position year over year, over the past few years, staying around $10 million deficit, as we note, largely related to the OPEB liability. Just pointing out the New York State Office of New York State Comptroller, they do monitor fiscal stress throughout the school districts, and they use these 6 indicators or ratios noted on the bottom here to monitor fiscal stress. Not a significant factor for this district since the reserves are well funded and there's excess fund balance. However, you'll notice based on the 2020 data, out of the 672 schools reported, 7 had a moderate risk, 2 were significant risk, and 22 were susceptible to fiscal stress. Just as an example of how the district can use these ratios to compare their own calculations. On the left-hand side, you'll see the general fund's unassigned budget or unassigned fund balance over the gross expenditures. Anything over 3% is considered not having fiscal stress. Once you get below 3%, the district will be flagged for fiscal stress. So as you can see, very healthy fund balance, very healthy reserve levels as well. For the last section here, we'll go through the management letter comments that we have as a result of the audit, as well as one instance of non-compliance. So in the back of the audit financial statements, you'll see a report that's called the Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control over Financial Reporting and on Compliance and Other Matters. This year, there is one finding in the internal control on compliance related to the real property tax law. So since the fund balance over 4% is significant this year, we did consider this a finding on the audit report for internal control. So our recommendation is to monitor the reserve levels and work on decreasing the fund balance closer to 4% based on a responsible level that the board considers. Management's response is they will appropriate $600,000 toward next year's budget to help reduce the fund balance, as well as utilize some of the fund balances to make improvements, repairs around the district's facilities, as well as some other additional staffing and material shortages that were recognized. School food service fund balance. This is management letter comment number 1. Same comment as last year. This school food service fund is required to have a fund balance that does not exceed 3 months worth of expenditures. The district has an excess fund balance over that 3 months of expenses of approximately $133,000. So our recommendation is to come up with a plan to decrease that fund balance closer to the required levels. This is something that a lot of our districts are seeing this year with the free meal programs and increased participation in those meals. The excess federal funds are coming into the districts. Management's response, again, they'll utilize the funds to improve meal service efficiency, increase the overall safety of the district, functioning of equipment, and increase staffing levels as needed. Last comment here on extra classroom. We did see a slight decrease or a relaxation of the controls this year in extra classroom, partly due to COVID and the kids not being in the district the prior year. So our recommendation is to get with the student treasurers, club advisors, put those controls back in place, make sure profit and loss statements are being signed so that the controls are proper. Management's response is that, you know, the controls that were there pre-COVID will go back into place this next year. Last but not least, I just want to point out some additional services that we did provide this year. First of all, helping our districts with GASB 84 implementation, assisting with the preparation of the financial statements, as well as other consulting services. We're always available throughout the year. If the district needs anything, the business office needs anything. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for continuing to allow Bowers to service the district. And that will do it for today's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on to a presentation from our library media specialist.
Good evening. How's everybody tonight? Great. I have a microphone too. You might have used this. I use the right cap. Sure. Yes. There we go. Might help a little bit. Okay, so these are just a few things that I've put together. One of the things what I hope you guys know is one of the things that thank you. One of the things that I would really like, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me tonight. This is a real privilege because I haven't been able to do this yet as your librarian. And it's really good to be able to explain to you what we do together as teachers and librarians. So this is exciting for me. My goal, I put together kind of a vision, and I took this from the information fluency goals for New York State. This is right from the New York State goals. What I would like to be able to do with other teachers is to teach information fluency skills in collaboration with classroom teachers to help students learn essential content and help them become lifelong independent learners. So as I do anything that I do with the resources I'm about to show you, this is what I'm shooting for. okay? So, in our library, we have in order to show students, we have more titles than this, but we have 17,778 books. That includes what you see on our shelves right now and ebooks as well. So when I bring students in here, I love to tell them that because they get all excited. And then I also like to show them the website. And I'd like to show that to you as well, briefly. And on our website, it gives us links to the Opals catalog. Now, Opals is what we used to look at in the drawers, the card catalog. We also, on my website, you can see an electronic book order form. So if a lot of times high school students, especially middle school and high school students, can't get in here, I'm usually teaching a class. So they will fill out this book order form, and I can, you'll see outside my door, I've got a pickup and a drop-off box. So I make sure that they can still get books if they would like to get some. So I have a book order form, and I also, if they're not sure how to use this card catalog, I have a tutorial for them. And if they're at home, of course, they can use it as well. And for the little ones, if their parents want to use it, they can do that as well too. So just briefly, if I may, I'd like to show you what the library website looks like. So this is, I like to do a newsletter every couple of months. And so these are just some things that we're studying with the elementary, and I have a 7th grade media class, and these are some things. Digital citizenship is really big this year, teaching them about privacy and security and how to prevent cyberbullying, things like that. I'd like to tell you about Sora in just a minute. So these are just some things I wanted to highlight. The remote library is something I put together when we closed for COVID, but I kept it open because these are things, there's some new books. Here's another way they can find my books I know. A place to look at the new books. This is much bigger on this computer than it is on the other one. But there are resources for kids here that they don't typically get anywhere else. So if you click here, there are learning games in many different categories. So there's history games and math games and even things you can do in art. There's virtual field trips and science games and lots of different things that are not typical things that they might find in our databases. So lots of different things for them to do. There's resources for teachers there as well. So that's the remote library. The book order form is here. So it's very easy to find. And it's for each grade level. So they can fill that out if they'd like a book. There are 2 different types of searching, and I'll show you just the one. This is the one that kids are most familiar with. They know where to find the owl, and so they can search by keyword, title, or author. And then they can search standard search as well. Here's the tutorial, and this is the big one that I really would like to show you tonight is the database portal. These are all the databases that the teachers mostly use. We have a vast majority of databases. This is encyclopedias, full of articles. There are video links. There's the Watertown Daily Times. There's a citation source. All kinds of things. And so lots and lots of different things. And I go back here. So there are those that I just showed you are set up in sections. So there are elementary databases, and so I'll just briefly, I was hoping you could read it short and sweet. So we have Bookflix, which is a beautiful thing that is, Bookflix are picture books that are kind of classics, and they're paired with supplemental nonfiction. So Bookflix is kind of like Netflix with picture books. So they're fiction, and then they're paired with something that's nonfiction. So if a teacher is doing something on autumn, they can read some, there's one about a fox that is nervous about the fall, and then they can read something else that's true about what fall is like. So it's really nice because they can put the nonfiction aspect into it. Brain Pop Junior is activities and videos and lessons and all kinds of activities for any topic really that you can get. Yale Elementary and World Book and World eBook, those are all encyclopedia sources. Research Rocket is articles and informational reading. Frozen eBooks is nonfiction reading as well. And Sora is a really high interest reading application that students can get on their Chromebooks, they can get on their mobile devices, they can get on their computers, so they can get it really pretty much anywhere. And this is a new thing that we started last year, and it's taken off quite a lot, actually. They use it, sometimes they use it more than they're using books, which kind of breaks my heart, because when they don't take out books, it kind of bothers me. I prefer the tangible things, but of course, we're in a new generation now, so. Okay, so, and then Brain Pop is the same as Brain Pop Junior. Britannica is, again, encyclopedia. Gale is an encyclopedia online. GPS for Success, these are secondary. These are things that will help kids with career planning. So these are sources for teachers to help kids with those kinds of things. Library of Congress, primary sources, really good for those global studies things where the global studies teachers are trying to get those students to use primary sources. The Library of Medicine, really good for the science teachers who need those kinds of things. If they're doing a special assignment in they might be medicine or if there's a nursing student that needs to do something like that. And then there's Research Rocket, which is grades 3 through 12. And then Noodle Tools is a great collaborative citation source where they can use outlining and note-taking and all kinds of stuff. And then a lot of these are similar to the elementary databases. They're just for high school kids. So, and then we see that we have the Watertown Times. Teen Book Cloud is like Tumble Books. So they are videos and high interest reading for high schoolers. I don't want to keep you too long because I know I'm probably starting to that, so I don't want to do that. I just get excited about this. Okay. But the other thing that I don't want to talk too much about is educator databases, which is really neat. Because the Library of Congress primary sources also has a section for teachers, which is really nice. The PBS Learning Media has videos and lesson plans, especially for teachers, a section for them. And then teachingbooks.net also has those kinds of things. They have author interviews and vocabulary and lesson plans and discussion questions and all kinds of stuff just for teachers. So we have things that are special for each member of our clientele. So lots of different things for everybody. And we can serve anybody that comes in the library, we can serve them. So thank you again for.
You can see how exciting it is. The kids love coming here, the teachers love coming here. Little has revamped the entire library media classroom and it's really a place that our school.
What happened to the babies?
The Dewey's, oh, it's still here.
Yeah.
Just not used about it.
No. So for anybody to access this, parents obviously can't
a student. And for the community, or it's really enough to be a student. How does that work?
Well, yes, typically, if you have a student, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are passwords, in fact, I did print them off, if anybody would like access to those, I did print them. If you want that, because I know, the Watertown Times is not always easy to come on.
That's, yeah.
So-
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah.
The grandparents
Yes.
certainly would
Yeah.
also
Yes.
be able to get access, or caregivers.
Yes.
I guess I was thinking about that.
Yeah, the only thing that I have to be careful of is, when we get the passwords out, we can't put them like I can't put it on my website,
Right.
but we can put it in our Google Classrooms as long as it's not.
They have access to it.
Yeah, so that the community doesn't have access to it.
Exactly.
But I got the passwords with me, anybody with them, so you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome to take this, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, we're moving down. We are starting with the consent agenda. We've all seen these, they're not sent up to us, so do I hear a motion to approve the
Yes,
consent?
I just want to say
Yeah,
something
go
more,
for it.
I'm sorry. There were a couple notes on the general fund warrant made by Steve Lambert. One of them was, that the invoice, that the purchase order reference on the vendor's invoice was the employee name. So I think the one who's, talking about in particular said Todd instead of Theo. The purchase was already approved prior to him purchasing the item. It's just that the vendor didn't reference our purchase order number on there. What I can do is have Heather, if necessary, have her contact the vendors to make sure that the purchase order is being referenced on the invoice. And then, he mentioned to make sure to attach the purchase order to the invoice, and I would have to say it is my fault. Heather has been out these past couple weeks, and I've been helping Vicky, gather the invoice, matching the invoice to the purchase order and the requisition. And typically, when you enter a invoice in Envision, you can do it one of two ways. You can enter each individual invoice separate as a separate entry, or on one entry, you can list several different invoices. So for one entry, we had Ready Shred. This is one example that I noticed. And there was one invoice, there's two invoices, two different entries, which means that I printed a purchase order attached to one invoice. And I just kind of put the invoice underneath that one because it was seen as two separate entries. But at the end, when you attach all of the documentation for the vendor file, the purchase order is there. So I'll just make sure that, that was actually my mistake. So yeah. But I'll make sure that we make sure we're matching the purchase orders and that the vendors are referenced. And I do want to actually thank Vicky Barber for filling in these past couple weeks, because Heather has been out on surgery. So she has been a tremendous help in making sure that the business operations have been running smoothly. She was essential in putting together this warrant and making sure that payroll is flowing. So I really want to thank her for coming in these past couple of weeks.
I know, I was there, she said, I thought I'd forget everything, and she said, I didn't forget everything.
Yeah.
I was really good about that, I tried to forget.
Tried to forget.
And also, we wanted to recognize you with the audit. For your first year doing that audit. So, nice job, so. Okay, any other questions or anything on the consent agenda? All right, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Do I hear a second? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? All right, moving down to the regular agenda. Public comments. We do have a couple of people who are gonna, who want to speak. So I just want to read our statement for public participation, which we do. Each month, our agenda includes an item called public comments. As the president of the Lyme School Board, I'm pleased to welcome community and staff members to our meeting. The board is very interested in hearing our public comments and as our role to represent the citizens of the school district. Therefore, I request the following. Regarding school-related issues, every effort should be previously made to settle the issue for the administration based on established board policy or administrative procedure. Remarks should be brief, limited to 3 minutes, and pertinent to the subject area. Understanding that you should limit comments to your concerns with your child, no comment should be made about other students or any Lyme Central staff member during your comments. Reminder, please do not use any names of Lyme Central School District personnel or individuals' names during your comments, and your comments are important to us. The Board of Administration will not respond to your personal comments or questions during this time. Your comments or questions may be submitted in writing to the board clerk. And following review of the Board of Education Administration, a response will be provided by the superintendent prior to the next regular Board of Education. Thank you very much for your cooperation. We have 2 people tonight. We have Heather O'Brien and Mindy Kaplan.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? There's a lot of feedback, but okay. Can you, do I have feedback?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so I thank you for giving me a moment to speak. I do understand that you are not required to reply, but I would appreciate a follow-up because some of my comments are very time sensitive. Communication about winter sports, I believe, needs some improvement. I've spoken to 2 different Board of Education members and the athletic director secretary in the last month, and all of them stated they were unsure if winter sports were going to occur. The email I received from the superintendent said there was a plan to have winter sports. However, when I look at the minutes from past meetings, only 2 coaches have been approved. I think 2 of the coaches have been approved. And then if there's not going to be winter sports, or if there is an uncertainty about winter sports, I think that communication needs to be given to the parents so we can have some alternatives. I was also asked about having my child play for a different sport and what paperwork and procedures I had to fill out. Well, looking at them, it appears to be almost a month-long process. So if the school decides 1 week before basketball starts that they are not going to have it, then it does not give me enough time to find an alternative backup plan for my son. We are fortunate that we could probably investigate doing travel, but I feel that is not an equitable solution for this school district, since many of our students would not have that as an option. I also am very concerned about the damage done to the basketball court while the playground was put in. And I was wondering if there was a plan to fix the court or to resurface it. Thank you very much for your time.
Is everybody able to hear me? Okay. I have kind of a follow-up to what Heather has to say. I appreciate you guys taking your time and listening. I appreciate that this has been a challenging 1.5 years, and I appreciate all the efforts from administration, the boards, to the staff. I also would like to make sure that our winter sports can happen if at all possible. I believe that our children need it. I believe that our school needs it for the program. And I think that I have seen other schools of our size being able to find a way for it to happen. And I just want to ensure that we can give every effort to make it happen if we're allowed, and allow parents to have a collaborative input into this, as well as coaches to support the administration and the board if this is happening. Like I said, the biggest thing is the communication, so we know and we can tell our kids what's going to happen with practice being a month away. And that's all I have to say. I just want to make sure that, you know, the board is aware that there's a lot of parent support for it to happen.
Okay. Under discussion action, we have ongoing, policies, board information, we need to let Sherry know if we're going to do the LOCs, presentation on the 21st of October. So you can tell her whether you want to do virtual or in person, and then we have a finance committee meeting at 5 o'clock. Going on to the next. It says the November 4th at 5 o'clock.
Under board information.
Oh, yeah. All right, moving on.
I'm sorry, board information.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm all the way down to number 6, right? Oh, 5. 5, board information. I will state the following personnel we do for consideration for tenure.
No,
Just information. Okay, sure. Okay. All right, board discussion actions requested to approve the section 3 combining contract between Lyme Central and Rollins Islands, allowing Lyme students to participate in sporting events, including home practices and competitive league games, TI Central Varsity and modified lacrosse team during the 21-22 school year. Do I hear a motion?
So varsity typically when we do another sport, parents transport, so we've got modified boys. Where parents are still responsible for transportation.
Yeah.
Yep. But they open it up, like, for, like, that would be a limit.
Did they open it up or we had requests?
We've had requests, we have requested the varsity level and the modified level to participate in that. We've only had 2 people come forward.
All right,
Request,
so,
we may have an additional student that mentioned it, but that's it.
okay, so this is,
So all expenses are responsibility of the family,
Transportation.
right,
transportation, and it's $250 to play. They have to okay it with they have to pay directly to TI.
Is there any issue with numbers?
For what?
Meaning the teams?
For lacrosse?
Yes.
This one is just for lacrosse because we don't have lacrosse.
I know that. I'm asking about all the other teams.
No, everything is, you have plenty of.
I know we're struggling with kids wanting to be replaced.
We're at soccer, we had 3 or 4 extra for each team. For basketball, we have, we have plenty for each team there. Softball, we're set at both the JV and the varsity level. And baseball, we have a team. No, it's been close, For example, three soccer teams last year, the year before, we were close. Some of the parents complained because their students played all the time. Usually I get it the other way, they don't get enough play. But we've had enough for each team.
Even if we approve this, TI can say no. So we reach out.
I'm
They've
sorry
already
to interrupt,
said
they
yes,
have approved.
Exactly, but if something happens that we had too many students that wanted to go there, if all of a sudden 10 students rather than
Right,
2 students wanted to play,
yeah, because like
They
now that
might-
the information is out there,
right?
like, are more people gonna come forward and are they gonna be like, oh, no.
These students that have come forward have played lacrosse since they were little. One is a transfer student, the other 2 have played the summer lacrosse leagues.
Well, I was just curious about, especially the modified, I figured if it was a varsity, it was somebody who had cross experience, modified is more of a, sometimes the kids are like, I don't really like baseball, but I've always wanted Lyme to have lacrosse, you know what I mean? So.
It could happen.
It could.
It could happen. We did put a request in for girls lacrosse for General Brown, and they said they have plenty of players. They're not interested in having any of our players.
And right now, honestly, there are districts that really are struggling, you know, with that close proximity with students from other districts as well, so. This is just to allow them to play. But, so do I hear a motion to approve them to that? Your second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passed. Actions requested to approve a master's degree for the following personnel. Do I hear a motion? Sure. Anthony, do I hear a second? Scott, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passed. Second reading of the draft revision of the building principal policy. Do I hear a motion to approve? Yeah. Anthony, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passed. The first reading of the draft revisions makes the current policy for review and approval of adoption and revision. This policy is required. We are prepared for the approval. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Sure. It's gonna be live, but we'll have access to something that's in just the way I read it, it said it's gonna be lockable for the person.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
Right, so if there's an issue with that person.
Yes. Will we be able to get in? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Right. Do I hear a
Good
motion?
question.
Do I hear a motion to approve that?
Yeah.
Sherry, do I hear a second?
So,
Scott, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion passed. Actions requested to approve the recommendations for the Committee on Special Education and Committee on Preschool Special Education. Yes, Sherry, it's
So later this afternoon, Mrs. Lincoln will be down to see me, and one of the students, a pre-K student that was listed on the report, she asked me to remove, but it was so late in the day that they rather than run them, I had to them out to you. I just thought I'd let you know that, so she will be presented by the team. She wasn't quite ready for that.
do I hear a motion to approve the one that we do have?
Sure.
Anthony, do I hear a second?
so,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passed. Administrative reports. We'll go to Barry first.
Well, happy October. It has been a busy first month at school. We've been hopping. I have met with all of the teachers for their APPR meetings. We discussed their goals for the coming year. We also discuss students and data with them. So that takes it. Now I'm into doing observations. I'm going to complete all of my formal observations, which is part of the APPRs for our non-tenured teachers. This week I've met with the students. The 5-week grades came out and students that weren't successful. We talked about strategies on how to become successful and what to do. And kids are very candid. They share again where their shortcomings and what they need to do. And usually it is that they need to do the work. It's not necessarily tests or quizzes. It's not that. Participating in, and also for those formal interviews, I have a pre-meeting with each teacher. We discuss what I'm going to see in the classroom. I've done a couple of our non-tenured teachers already, and it was very enjoyable. They are confident, and it's to see what goes on in those classes. It's truly wonderful. We attend at-risk meetings every 2 weeks to discuss students that we are concerned with social, emotional issues in addition to academic concerns. I've been attending several sports events as one of the chaperones. We meet together, the administrative team, quite a bit, discussing concerns and things like that. I'm meeting with 2 of the teachers. We hope to put together a junior national honor society. That's one of the goals for us this year, and the teachers involved are very excited about that. And we are working with our present National Honor Society advisors to work out a plan on how to put this together. Let's see, what else do I have on here? I have, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm going to move over. I'm going to switch the ball over to winter sports. Looking at the basketball season, I have done some research on getting a camera for our gymnasium. I think, Mrs. Morrison, you've shared with the board some of the information.
I have some of it,
Okay, so through your report, you'll talk about that. I pass that along. When we make a decision for winter sports, and I'm going to say basketball and cheerleading, things that we have to think about is if we have basketball, do we just have players in the gym? Do we have no spectators? If we have spectators, what do they need to show to get into school? Presently, our teams are 50% vaccinated. The nurse told me this earlier today. Possibly we could have spectators with 2 guests and separate them out. And in both situations, there would be no visitors from the opposing teams. And of course, the question, is there basketball? Cheering the same way. Do we have cheer? Do we don't? Do we have cheer along with the basketball games at home? Or do we go to competition only? I have a Frontier League meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. It's a virtual meeting, and one of the questions I'm going to ask about cheerleading is, do they go, if you've been to a cheerleading competition, there is no room to stand. My concern would be all those people in one gymnasium, but they could possibly do a competition where there's just judges in the team. So we're going to find out more. I'm going to move it over to extracurriculars because students that are not necessarily athletes also have an opportunity to shine. We are sending our Whiz Quiz team on the road, just like we send our sports teams on the road. They're going tomorrow. We have a musical possibly for the spring. We can't, with copyright, there's a lot of issues with copyright, so you can't just film it and show it. There's a lot of hoops to go through that. I have someone that's very interested in being the advisor. She was appointed, but to put on a show. Do we have a musical next year? What does it look like? Concerts for the winter are going to be virtual. But as we move forward with all of these thoughts, should we have 2 parents in it? And once again, there's copyrights to music and performance, which I would have to do more research. I know Mrs. Timmerman has shared that we can't just show something, they can't, which sounds crazy to us, but I don't live into that world. As far as basketball and coaching, we have there will be someone on our staff that's very interested in being that coach for the varsity boys. So these are all things that we have been around, unfortunately. And I know that Mrs. Morrison's going to elaborate. We take these very seriously, and whenever a decision's made, it's been based on the safety of our students. And it's nothing that this conversation is going on, and I know that she'll elaborate. These are the decisions that are the tough decisions. We want the kids to have every experience possible.
we really wanted an opportunity also to talk to the board about this. And as Mr. Davis says, he has a meeting tomorrow. I have a meeting next week. There was a cabinet meeting with the superintendents, which I am part of. And we create the agenda for the next superintendent's meeting. And the issue of sports is on that agenda. So we are not, keeping this to ourselves or not sharing this out just to create frustration with our families. Those types of decisions, we try to get together as superintendents and try to be as consistent. Right now the question is, are we going to require players to either show vaccination or be tested? Just like right now, we're expecting our staff to be tested weekly if they are not vaccinated. We're doing the same with our coaches. Some districts have said that they were very successful in having 2 spectators per player for the home team only. Others said there was some contentious situations where people would come in and refuse to put their mask on. And so, those are all considerations, and I would dare say all of the districts have much larger facilities than we do. And so when we're spreading people out, and we are trying to do what's right, trying to keep some of these safety initiatives in place, when you look at our numbers, the COVID percentages in our area are much higher than they were last year at this time. It's frightening. They are the highest in the state, and it is frightening. Last year, we didn't have winter sports because we felt it was safest and best for our students and staff. I know they want to. Yes, we did have better numbers, and I know they want to play. I know that. Just like our children that love the performances, love to do the theater. But these are not easy decisions to make. We've had a request from the youth committee to have sports here. It's not as simple as just saying, yes, we would love you to use our facility, like we would. We would love everyone to use the facility, but then we have to think again about, okay, how do we monitor who's coming in? Right now, we are not having guests in the building for that reason. So I don't have to ask every person that enters the building, are you vaccinated? Will you show me vaccination status? We're trying to keep our children and our staff safe. So we get the frustration, but I really am going to ask that we hold off just a little bit longer until after the superintendents meet next week. When Mrs. O'Brien indicated that I said, the intention is to have winter sports, I said, absolutely, our intent is to have winter sports. We hope to have winter sports. But the reality is, many things can change between now and then, and we still have some planning to do. It is our intention, but we don't know what it will look like. Is it best to have it but only have the players here? Is that safest and honestly easiest for the staff to manage? I don't know. I really do want to see what other districts are planning. And again, we are different here. We're much smaller. We have limited resources. We have fewer custodial staff. And I'm going to be frank, there are oftentimes that our staff is no longer interested in supervising because sometimes people are not treating them well in regard to mask wearing and following the mandates. So You know, we are going to continue to make decisions that we believe are best for kids, and I recognize it's not going to make everyone happy. We will make these decisions and communicate the decisions just as quickly as we possibly can. We're not quite there yet. And, you know, if the board would like to weigh in and, you know, the camera that Mr. Davis talked about might be a good option. So districts, I spoke to TI utilizes that. There is a cost, an annual fee of $69.95 for each family that uses it for the year. I think it's $49 for a season that the parents would be billed. The district can purchase a license, which is $4,000 for the year. There is a contract that would be a 5-year contract. And then, you know, so that's something that we would want to look at. I think you can buy out the contract after 3 years or something like that. So they will bring the equipment at no charge. They will install the equipment. Mr. Basho, when I spoke with him, he actually sent a clip. He sent me his password so I could get on. He said, don't share this or anybody. But I got on and it really is, it's very cool. I mean, you can see all over the gymnasium. So that's really exciting. The decision would have to be, you know, the district pay for that. That would probably be my preference rather than put that on our taxpayers. However, I'm a little hesitant to sign a 5-year contract, but again, if the board thinks that that's, you know, irrelevant.
We can go 4,000 next year and then go and then say the following year, switch it up and say, if you want to take, you know, if individuals want to pay for the service, we're no longer paying, well, still, we can do that, so that, you know, your family might pay that where the district won't. If the 4,000 covers everybody that wants to watch it, grandparents, parents, people, you know, blue hair on anybody.
Yeah. To me that, you know, but I kind of like that idea because you know, it would maybe take some of the sting away from not having people in the building, which I know is what we all want. So, you know, we would be willing to, we can get that installed, get that in place right away.
So about 3 weeks for that. And I think key is if we want our students to play.
Right.
It's about our kids having the opportunity. I know we want, as parents, I wanted to see my kids play, and it was devastating when I wasn't able to see them last year, in the year, you know, at the end of the year, play their sports or their other activities. But at least you can watch them on TV, and you can't be there in person.
So if we filmed them, how would you, like, would the link be on the website?
It would be watching live. They would be watching live. Yeah, there would be a link, and it's just like watching them on.
Just like what we did here.
Yeah,
Right. So it would be like on the home meeting or whatever.
Yeah, I would not want to have parents have to pay. I think we have families who cannot afford it, and I think I don't know, I just don't think it's fair to families who can't afford it not to be able to watch the kids. So if we're gonna do it, we pay for it for now and let all families watch it. I just don't think it's fair to families. It is a long-term investment.
All the neighboring schools here, they all got people that we travel.
Right.
So it would just confuse everything.
Yeah, we have such a supportive community for everything else, and I think this is something that we can do for them, so.
People that want to be.
Right.
Watch
it, because it's available. Yeah, and I say that I'd rather have the kids playing with nobody there, or let them play.
Right.
That's really, I think that's how we feel as well. And again, we can revisit. I do think, I also spoke to the Belleville superintendent, and I believe her intention, and I think Sackett's, Mrs. Gibbons, they allow two spectators per player, but no visiting, no visitors come in the building. I think we have the space to do that.
If JV would go with the parents, when the JV game is finished,
Yes.
then it go.
Yes.
And then
We
varsity
can-
parents.
right. And you know, you also have to have some cleaning done
Yes.
there too. So one thing that we can do, Copenhagen starts their games earlier. And if the buses work out, we could start our JV games at 5 o'clock. So that, you know, it works with our custodial staff too. Because there's a lot of things, you have all those desks now in the gym that have to be moved. They have to be taken out of the gym to pull out the bleachers. So there's all this additional things that we don't, it's just not open the doors to the gym.
Right.
Yeah, whoever we got, they didn't get to play last year.
Yeah, I think we gotta give it a whirl.
I think we're, you know, that's the way we were leaning as well. I again would like to, I know it's another week, but as soon as Mr. Davis has his meeting tomorrow and I have my meeting next week, we can get a communication out very quickly after that. And
One of the things that I will say, that I highly doubt that any other school will take our students on. If say we didn't have basketball and my child was playing basketball in Thousand Islands and a Lyme person played and my son didn't, I would be upset. So I don't think that that's gonna happen for this, unfortunately. And I think you've got 5 players out there. It's not like football, it's not like lacrosse where you need those extra numbers.
And if there's any opportunity, we can let 2 parents come for our kids, not the other, I would be supportive of that. We have parents who haven't seen their kid play in 2 years, this is their senior year, and to me, let them come, if we can get 2 parents per person, that would be my other. If it's not an option, it's not an option, but that would be my other, and I personally think we could do that, it's just, we don't have that many. I think we can too.
Right,
You know,
and the health pieces we've gotta figure out too.
Right.
You know,
They could be on both sets of bleachers.
right,
You know, sometimes the struggle we run into, and I just, you know, wanna bring this up, is that you will have children from divorced homes and both sets of parents want to be there. And so, you know, my expectation would be that they have to take turns or some, you know, work that out amongst themselves. But if we say 2 per player, it's 2 per player. We can't say, well, you know, these children can have 4 because they're from, you know, a different situation. So we just have to come up with a plan that's fair and equitable. And that being said, if we are going to do winter sports, we are also going to figure out a way to do, you know, the other curricular and extracurricular activities that our students look forward to. Might look a little different, and people will have to be patient with us, but we will do our very best to open that up to everyone.
If we can watch it live, right?
I'm not, see, that's the problem, and I don't know if, you know, because we still are being cautious with COVID, if there would be some concessions, you know, in regard to the musicals being recorded, being permitted to.
that's stuff we have to look into, we don't
So
know.
all of that.
I know that Alex Fay did something similar last year, and I don't know if she had to get the rights, I can contact that music teacher because I know.
Yes, I think Indian River.
Right, so you can contact and see, and maybe just pay more money. We want, it is important for the kids to have these experiences.
And I also wanted to thank you for looking into the Junior Honor Society.
Oh, you're welcome.
I've had some parents asking that in the past, and I just think it's important that they don't know where we listen to them and that we're looking into it. They've asked me in a few years, why don't we have one? So I'm glad we're looking into that. That's great for our students.
Thank you.
All right, Pat.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if you read the news and I'm sure you are aware of the shipping crisis for like our series. Oh, coming in piecemeal. But this was extend our reading for grades 4 through 6. Found in our Journeys reading series for those grade levels. So that's what we've been doing. In the meantime, our teachers have been teaching reading through novels selected and following the standards using that manner. The 3 through 8 tests are what we use to prepare or have our interim assessments and preparation for those tests in the spring. Those were given at a couple of weeks, so I'll be sitting down in those grade levels for what we call data chats to see how well our students are faring on those pulses. It's not a grade that they're given, it's just a check-in. So it's more information for our teachers, how well kids are responding to what they're using to instruct with. Learned that computer-based testing is now open to all districts. Prior, during COVID, it was only districts that have had CPT and computer-based testing in previous years. We haven't done it, we weren't eligible to do so. So now the door is open for us to give that a try. So I'll be sitting down with teachers and getting the feel for, are we ready? I know that my kids, with our technology, we are ready to do so. I think it's like the past 2 years, we're very well versed with what they've been doing for years, instruction online. So I think we're ready to go. It's just getting all this grammar set in place and procedures. Some other things I'm working on. I have a whole list here, but we're wrapping up interviews and still have some ideas to positions, unfortunately, that we're still hoping to get some interest in. So
We are still looking for a vocal music teacher. Anyone knows anyone out there? Please.
Mr. Davis mentioned our observations and starting today and start next week. Finishing up the meds reporting. Let's help with that from Kim's upstairs in the guidance office. Some supervision at Ames. Been busy.
Okay, that's good.
It was October 6th. Yeah. Those reports are due November.
Okay. So I would like to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the letter I sent out to the community and to just clarify a few things and actually make a recommendation to the board. So as you're aware, we all received a communication from Toby Clark, and he's from the NCAI. And he was kind enough to provide us with a great deal of information which pertains to Native heritage, Indian heritage. So we've been contacted obviously by different news media outlets. I've received a few communications from community members, which I've shared with you. And you know, myself, I've only had an opportunity to start reviewing a couple of those resources that were shared. It's a very extensive list, if you had an opportunity to look at that. So the good news is we, as of today, have uploaded all of those onto our website under the community tab so that our community can have the opportunity to also review all of those resources and documents that we received from Mr. Clark. So my recommendation would be at this point that we really do our due diligence, take some time to review and read the resources that were provided, And I'm thinking about, the holiday season is just around the corner. We'll be into the Thanksgiving holiday and then the Christmas season. We're trying to figure out sports right now. It is a very busy time at school. We just finished our playground project. And I think it would be prudent of us all just to take a bit of a step back and take some time to really review and read the resources that were provided. And again, give our community the opportunity to do the same. There has also been a suggestion that we invite some of the tribal leaders in to have conversations with us. In fact, Mr. Clark said that someone from his organization or a few people from his organization would be interested in providing their perspective to the board and to the community. So I think that's a great idea, but I think we need a little bit of time to prepare prior to that. So my recommendation to the board would be that we take, the November and December, which are very short months for us, and invite our community to get on the website, locate those resources, and really start looking into what these resources offer us as far as enlightening and maybe changing or not changing perspectives. And then we revisit this maybe the first of the year and come up with a plan for how we would like to open up some conversations, again, maybe with some of the representatives from the Indigenous group and our community. And I'm wondering if everyone is comfortable with that, or
I just feel like we've only had a couple of days.
we have had a
I
couple
just
of
feel like
days.
it's going way too fast. I think we don't wanna make any decisions quickly. I think we take the time until it was the fall to really read the documents and see if we're more educated ourselves about it. I think that would be a great idea.
Is every,
It doesn't take time for education to penetrate. It needs to penetrate.
yes,
It can't be just a surface level and your emotion takes over.
right.
So we got to find a way to penetrate.
Mhm.
Once everybody's on the same page with the education, then we have a discussion.
Well, they voted on this
Long time.
Yeah.
25 years ago when I.
Was it that long?
Quite a few years ago.
I think 25 years ago when I moved here, they were
Was there
voting on it.
information shared?
It was in the
or-
90s. Because Sackets Harbor,
Yeah,
it
96.
was the same year Sackets Harbor changed to be the Patriot.
It wasn't education. I didn't feel it was education back then. I felt it was, if you wanna change your mascot or something, you decide to do, then it was just or no. It wasn't
And
any,
there were a few choices.
it was just a survey, it wasn't,
Yeah,
we need to
and
change it.
and that's why we felt it was very important to put it on the website, let our community know. I will put out a parent square message, just letting, our community know where to find that information. Because, my intention was before this meeting, just to read through and, they're very lengthy documents and there's a lot to look at. There's, information from other states. There's information, that talks about how the Senate and the Assembly are presenting, some of these issues. There are news articles. And it really is very informative, and I can tell you, it has made me already start to question some of my perceptions.
And this was all about.
Mhm.
It didn't get locked into the perception. Here another,
Mhm.
and really into your own perception.
Make a decision. I agree. So, again, I will be happy to put a communication out and let the community know where to find these resources. And certainly if they have additional questions, that they can send and I can reach out to someone to try to find answers, I would be happy to do that. And in the meantime, you know, perhaps I can also reach back out to the NCAI and just let them know what we're thinking, and let them know that we would be interested in a conversation, you know, sometime in the first of the year. Okay, I do want to clarify one thing, and I actually told the board president I was going to do this. So you all know that I'm not a real big social media person. Apparently there were some comments made, and people were asking why I chose the Indian logo and then was deciding I didn't like it. So I just want to clarify to anyone listening, apparently that was decided in something like 1938 or.
And all the vehicles, that day.
Uh-huh.
And I researched them back, looking for the first time the logo was used. It was a small one on the front of 1964 yearbook.
1964.
Really?
Well, and
And it's not on the news. That doesn't show up.
well, I'm old, but I was not born in 1964. So I just want to clarify, it's not my logo. It was not my decision.
So when did the Indian, like when did Lyme become the Lyme Indians?
I'm not very sure. I just,
Yeah.
I mean, in the yearbook,
Yeah.
there's not even mentioned in that 64 yearbook. The name Indians is not mentioned anywhere in it. But there's a little tiny icon on the front cover. And it shows up in 65 and 66. I kept looking through those and I still couldn't find the Indian's name. And the uniforms didn't show.
Maybe Peggy and,
yes,
because they do that historical.
Yes.
I bet they would be able to find that stuff, Julie and Peggy.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
It would be interesting,
It's
and
really
I do
not.
think those are some of the facts. And I do wanna say, you know, one more time that, I did share with the reporter that I spoke with that I don't believe for a moment that there was any disrespect intended. There was no disrespect intended. In fact, I am 100% confident it was just the opposite.
That goes back to when they firmly believe in the perception that they're honoring.
Yeah.
Yes,
tribes.
yes.
But there's an education
Yes.
process.
Yes, and you know, just from that very short article, I believe, you know, some of the chiefs that were spoken, they understand that. They understand that there is that perception. So I didn't think they were being unreasonable either. But again, they wish to educate us that that while that's our perception, it's not their reality. So.
And just to clarify, we're not the only school, right?
Oh, no.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason,
I mean, the Warriors looks identical to what we have here.
yeah, and I will clarify the reason I sent the communication out so rapidly was because I became aware of a school district down near Albany that has had an ongoing, very contentious battle over this very subject. And it's my understanding that it was so contentious that the Commissioner of Education became involved. And there was a directive, in fact, a stop put on the use of the logo as a mascot. And it was threatened, I guess, for lack of a better word, that the Board of Education could be removed, the superintendent could be removed, and all state aid withheld from that district if they did not comply with this stop order. So when I heard that, first of all, I'll say, well, I'm here, we're not going to get to that place. But, you know, I would much rather start educating ourselves and looking at this like we always do at Lyme. We look at the situations, we've dealt with many challenges, and we talk through those, we have conversations, we educate ourselves, and we make decisions that are best for kids. This is a challenging topic, no doubt. But we will approach it in the same way that we approach every issue here at Lyme.
And I think when you said we're not a mass of people.
Yeah.
Pretty clear how they feel. So if that's the way they feel, we need to take it to heart and we'll look at it. So I agree.
Okay.
Take our time and I encourage everybody.
We'll take a couple months to, you know, really read and review and ask questions, and then we'll come up with a game plan first of the year. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, moving down, any items for the next board meeting, which is gonna be on November 4th? We moved
It
it
was on
back to
Veterans Day.
It's the 11th, but it was Veterans Day.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, we had to move that.
Yes, we had it on there incorrectly first,
Yeah,
and then
we have to move it. We move it more to the issue. But they've known it. They know. It wasn't like the last. That's okay. All right, so the next one is be resolved that Lyme Central School District takes action on the following positions as listed. Do I hear a motion? Motion. Kathy, do I hear a second? Hearing, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passed. Motions to approve the following personnel changes with the effective dates is listed below. Do I hear a motion? Carrie?
Second.
Scott, second. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, motion passed. And upon the recommendation of the superintendent, on behalf of Lyme, these employees that have finger products, do I hear a motion to approve them?
Yep.
Carrie, do I hear a second?
Second.
Scott, all in favor? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passed. Third, I need a motion is requested to enter the executive session for discussion of litigation strategy concerning a current pending legal matter involving a student, parent, and medical history of one particular person. Do I hear a motion? Gary, do I hear a second? All in favor? Opposed, abstained, motion passed. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will return after the executive session.